Cinematographer Stanley Cortez's lighting in Charles Laughton's Night of the Hunter is more than beautiful. It effectively conveys character, narrative, and mood. The film also makes great use of what the film scholar Stefan Scharf called familiar image, which is the repetition of compositions, graphic elements, sound, or sequence to affect the audience's interpretation of a moment by allowing them to experience and understand it in the context of the similar shot from earlier in the film. Now, don't worry, it'll make more sense in a minute. We're going to look at a couple of scenes from the end of The Night of the Hunter that'll show you what I'm talking about in terms of both familiar image and the expressive and narrative power of lighting. But first, you'll need some sense of the story up until that point. Here goes. A desperate dad robs a bank and gives the money to his young son, John, making him promise not to tell anyone where he hid it. The dad gets caught and eventually executed, but not before the evil killer preacher man, Harry Powell, finds out about the hidden cash and shows up to seduce the kid's hopelessly dim-witted mother, Willa, who he kills the second he figures out she doesn't know where the money is, leaving John and his sister Pearl, who do know where the money is, at his mercy. They go on the run and are eventually taken in by a kind but tough old lady named Rachel, who already cares for a house full of orphans. Determined to find the stolen riches, Harry tracks them down. Okay, now for a shot-by-shot analysis of the scene where Harry comes after the kids and their hidden stash of cash. In this first shot, Harry boldly announces his dastardly presence by sitting in front of the house singing his favorite hymn. His backlit silhouette emphasizes his menace, just as similar silhouettes have many times before when he is at his most threatening. So his dark intentions are conveyed at this moment and reinforced by our associations with the lighting at all those other moments that came before. Familiar image and lighting. The next shot cuts upstairs to the sleeping children. Again, a familiar image evokes Harry's threat. This time, the lighting mimics the church-like composition of Harry's murder of John and Pearl's mother. The next shot cuts to Rachel standing guard with Harry still singing outside. Notice that Rachel is silhouetted with backlight, just like Harry 2 shots back. The backlight is equating her not with Harry's evil, but with his power. Her silhouette suggests that the old lady is just as tough as the killer outside. Now the scene cuts back upstairs, and the compositional association with Willa's murder is made even stronger now that young Ruby, a love-struck idiot just like Willa, is roused by Harry's crooning. In an earlier scene, Ruby fell for handsome Harry when she snuck into town, so the familiar composition linking Ruby's situation with Willa's fate makes the threat of Harry that much stronger. Cut to backlit Rachel. The camera tracks past her, linking her and her opponent in one fluid movement. Now Harry is no longer backlit. In this film, expressiveness is more important than continuity. Instead, the psycho-killer preacher is lit with a low-key side light, which uses illumination and shadow to divide his face into 2 distinct halves. This recalls many earlier instances where Harry's dual nature, 1 part scripture-quoting minister, 1 part homicidal maniac, is visualized with the same side light technique. So we understand Reverend Harry at this moment with those past events in mind. Familiar image. The next shot repeats the scene's first image of a backlit Harry waiting for the best moment to mount his attack. Again, the lighting pays no attention to continuity, preferring to communicate information, mood, and meaning. And in the upstairs window, light is used to draw our attention to Ruby heading downstairs, raising narrative expectations. What's going to happen when she gets mixed up in this showdown? When we cut back to Rachel, again, meaning trumps logic. No longer in silhouette, she is now lit so that we can not only see her saintly expression, but a halo of reflected light radiates from behind her head, adding to our interpretation of her as a shotgun-toting angel. The next shot doesn't exploit light much, but it's worth considering anyway. Harry is bigger in the frame, the largest he's appeared in the scene so far, raising his significance and foreshadowing his big move. And we clearly see his spatial position in relation to the screened porch where Rachel stands guard. Now to a reverse angle. Rachel's face is backlit again with her trusty 12-gauge ready for action in a revealing pool of light. Just beyond the end of the barrel sits side-lit Harry. The tension preceding their impending showdown is heightened by suddenly placing them together in the same shot for the first time in the scene. When Ruby enters the shot, light is used in a very unusual way. Whereas illumination is typically used to reveal information, this time it conceals Harry by reflecting off the screened window. Rachel blows out the candle, returning us to our original lighting scheme and revealing that Harry has slipped out of sight. Rachel stands into another halo and gently admonishes Ruby, who skedaddles back upstairs. A hoot outside draws Rachel's gaze, and the scene cuts to her implied point of view of an owl. Night of the Hunter loves to play with almost childlike symbolism, and here the owl stands in for the predatory Harry. Just to make sure we don't miss the point, the owl is sidelit in the same manner we've seen Harry many times before. Familiar image. The cute little bunny's fate is meant to give us very pessimistic expectations for the fate of the kitties snoozing peacefully upstairs. Okay, that's enough of this scene. I'll leave a few details for you to discover for yourself when you run out and rent Night of the Hunter. I'll just say that Harry ends up with a butt full of buckshot. Okay. The next scene doesn't have much to do with lighting, but it's a great example of familiar image. So the next morning, Harry's hiding out in the barn when the police arrive. He stumbles out, waving his little knife, and is taken into custody. The weird thing is that John, the kid that Harry's been trying to kill for half the movie, suddenly starts crying and calling Harry Dad and begging him to take the money back. The film uses familiar image to make sure that we understand that John hasn't suddenly developed an affection for Harry, but is instead reliving the traumatic event that started the whole mess and led to him losing both his parents. Compositions from the much earlier scene where John's father gives him the money and is arrested are repeated in this climactic scene. The cops arrive to arrest Dad. The cops arrive to arrest Harry. Dad wields gun. Harry wields knife. John reacts to Dad. John reacts to Harry. Cops grab Dad. Cops grab Harry. John cries out to Dad. John cries out to Harry. You get the idea.